Alright, it's time for making requests. So we're going to want to go to our search. So when we hit that connect button here, we want to trigger a function that we're going to put in our global, but we'll fetch it from here first. We'll fetch it here. We'll call it request connect. Now it's not there yet, we're going to have to go and create it, but we're going to set it all up here first. When there's no connection, this is here, this is where we want to connect. So this onPress will just be an anonymous function, and we'll pass it the user.username. So username is unique, we could use user ID, but we're just going to use username. Save that. And then when we hit connect, we've got to make our function first. So we'll come down to the bottom and we'll create a new section. We'll just take our old section, make a new one, and call it requests. And we're going to have a list of requests that is going to be displayed here on this first tab. Same sort of pattern. We'll set it to null if it's gonna, if it hasn't been loaded yet, then it'll be null. And we'll replace this. Request connect, and we'll pass a username. And we'll just remove all that. So all this is going to do is just send a socket request, which is exactly what we do here. So we just copy this, we grab the socket, and then the source is going to be request.connect. Now we're going to have more than one function that is request related. That's why we're going to prefix it here. We're going to have like a dot. So we're going to be out. The other one we're going to do is when we accept a request. So we're going to have request.connect and request.accept. So we're just going to deal with connect for now, and then we're just going to pass the username like that, and refresh. Shouldn't have any errors now. But we do. Cannot read property request connect. Request connect. Why request connect, request connect. Use state. Use global. And it's imported. That's a little mistake. Refresh. Mistakes are, if you want to be a programmer, mistakes are going to be your one and only friend. So get used to them. Sweet. All right, now when we hit connect, it should pop up here. So we hit connect, and it received our request.connect. This is our server here. Now it's not doing anything with this source, so that's what we're going to do next. We can close our app for now, and then we just look at our API, and we go to our consumers, and in receive. So I'm going to make another one here. So we'll just copy this and make a new one. Give it a helpful comment. We want to make a friend request, and it's request.connect. And our naming convention will keep the same as this other stuff. We'll make this function. So we're going to grab the username that was passed. We're going to fetch the user associated with it. just in case the user is not found. It shouldn't be, but we'll need to handle this in some sort of clever way. But we'll just print it out for now if there's some sort of error. Now we need to create a new model. We need to create a new object. We're going to call it a connection. So in our models, we've got a user here, but we need some additional data, some additional structure to store a connection between one user and another. Now, lots of different ways that we could go about this. I've picked a pretty simple, pretty straightforward way of doing it, and we're going to implement that right now. It's going to create a new model called connection. It's going to have a sender, which is going to be a user, a foreign key to a user. To a user object. We need to give it a related name. And an onDelete rule. And we also need a receiver. Now we're going to have a Boolean that's going to tell us whether the connection has been accepted or not. And 2 dates. So one for when it's updated and one for when it's created, which are pretty standard things to add to pretty much any model. But we're actually going to make use of them, which we'll see later on. They're going to help us when we order things. And give it we'll update the string that is displayed in our admin, which we will be looking at in a moment. So when we look at the admin, we're going to be able to see, you know, this user sent a request to this user, so it'll be very clear for us. Save that, and then we're going to need to import that models connection, and then we come back to our receive request connect, and we can create our connection. Now, we never ever want to create multiple. We only ever want one connection. So this is going to allow us to avoid creating duplicates. So the sender is always going to be us, and we have our user, which is in the scope of dictionary, user, and then the receiver is always the receiver that we passed here. Save that, and then we need to serialize. So we're going to have to create a serializer here. We're going to create a request serializer. And we'll make that now. So we'll go over to our serializers. And it's going to create a new one, which we'll just create from scratch. We'll come back and update our search serializer at the end of this, but so stay tuned for that. A request serializer. The serializers model serializer. And this is a great little trick that Django REST Framework allows us to do. We can just add this user serializer instead of having to create like a serializer method field or anything like that for our sender. We just create a sender here, and it's going to create it's going to create, this is basically going to be a dictionary with the contents of user serializer, and it's going to allow us to create like this is going to be like a nested object inside of our request serializer. It's going to be really useful. We'll have a look at its structure when we see it. We're going to print it out here, and we're going to see what's going on. It's going to make a lot of sense. And again, the point of this tutorial is so that you can see some of these concepts in action, not necessarily to explain every single detail. The kind of thing that I'm going for is for you to see how these things work in some of their glory, and then you can see what some of the possibilities are, and then you can go and figure the rest out for yourself. Instead of starting from first principles and reading through the documentation first and then going and build something, I find that to be the worst possible way of doing anything. I do not learn very well that way. I need to see it. I need to see, the interesting stuff happening. I need to see it in action before I even bother, like, going through the documentation. Like, the documentation should just be like the way. I mean, for me anyway, you should just be going through that when you're trying to find something specific, some specific reference. But to learn how to make something interesting from reading the documentation, I find that more difficult than most. And so we can't have it. All right, and we need to make sure we import our connection here. And that should be good. Go to our consumers. We're going to need to import our request serializer. And then we need to we're going to send this back to ourselves, which is nothing that we haven't done before. We did the same thing here, send it back to ourselves. So we're just going to go to sender. See, we are the sender, so we're going to send it back to ourselves. And self.send group. And then that's going to be the connection dot sender, which is us, our username. And then it's going to be a request connect, which is same here. When we go receive search, we send it back to the search. So receive, this is going to be so we know where it came from. And then our serialized dot data. And that's it. Well, it's not yet because we need to send it back to the person we're sending it to. So this is the first time that, as I said, this user. So I'm going to hit connect here, and then this user, me, is going to receive it here, and it's going to be displayed in our request instantly. And it's also going to update this as well. Our button, our connect button, is going to be changed to a different state, and blah, 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 blah. So now we need to send it. Send that same data object back. Put some space between these so that we can see what's going on. Yep. Okay, and that should be everything that we need to do in this elif. Make sure there's an elif there. And that should be, we need to migrate our change here, our connection. So this is going to be, yep, doesn't like that at all. There's a little spelling mistake there as well. In our models, plus, Mr. Plus here. If you caught that, you're going places. Save. Yep, that worked, but if we do anything now without migrating, it's not going to like that. So to do that, we're going to need to activate our virtual environment. cd into our API, Python manage make migrations. Yep, detected, all good. Then we want to migrate. Excellent. And then we'll make, oh, no, wrong one, make server. Yep, it's running again. And that'll work, but when we receive it, we're not doing anything yet. Or when we get our response, sorry, we're not doing anything yet. Here, I'm gonna create a new response. Request connect. And I like to, order things. Okay, now this is going to be a pretty juicy function. So we want to get our user, who is us, because we're going to need to know, is this being sent, like, is this a request that we made? Like, are we the sender or are we the receiver? So we need to figure out that, because if we are the sender, we want to update this button. If we are the receiver, we want to update this list. So yeah, we need to account for those two situations. So we'll grab the user, which we can grab by just going get, this get function that we passed here, and then getting our user, which is our user packet, whatever. Okay, now we're going to have two different sections here. So this is going to be our connection here. So we can even change the name of that to connection so it's a little bit clearer. And then we'll go if user.username is equal to connection.sender.username. If we are the sender, then we'll do something. If not, then we will okay. So now we're going to fill this out. So if I was the one that sent it, we want to update the search list. So we'll grab that. So we want to deconstruct whatever was in it here, because we need, in order to get it to re-render, we can't just grab the list like this and then add an item to it, because then when we add this search list back, when we do a set state, it's not going to recognize it as a different object. It's going to think it's the same object, and so it won't actually do anything. So this is the reason why we need to just add this little extra step here. We need to grab the index of the item in the search list. So we're just going to have to do a quick little search for that. And JavaScript provides us with easy way to do that. So just a function here. And then if we'll just do a little check to make sure that the search index actually found something, if it is greater or equal to 0. If it's not, it should be -1, I believe. And then now we'll update the status search list, search index. We want to update the status to pending them. We're waiting for them to accept our request. And then we can set state, and then we can update our search list. Our search list. There. that's all we need to do for this user. And so if we save that, socket opened again, that's cool. Now, search for a user. When I hit connect, it should update the database and then come back here, and then it will update this button. That's what it should do if there's no errors. Connect, we have an error. Yeah, spelling mistake. This is in line 78, my consumers. 78, connection, no C. Missing C, connection. Okay, save that. Refresh the app. Another error, another friend. So, and I hit that again. Another error. Another spelling mistake on 82. Should be fixed. All right, another friend, try again. And now, yes. Oh, mama. Okay, so that worked. And because it's pending now, when I click it again, it should be disabled, which is exactly what we did here. So when it's pending them, it's disabled. And it's got a different color and different style. This is what we did before. So that's exactly what we want. Now, eventually, we're going to do a little extra work, and then it's going to display here. But this is all we expected to see for now. We didn't expect it to up because we haven't updated this yet. But we wanted, this is our response that we got that was only sent to us, the sender. It was not sent to the other user yet. We'll get to that. And so see what I meant here when we've got our sender, we've got our receiver, and we've got our main dictionary, ID, sender, receiver, and then we've got a little nested object here, which is the actual user. That is exactly what I was talking about when I said in our serializers, we've got our sender, we've got our receiver, and it's really easy to have nested sort of objects like this. If we already have a serializer created for that object, we just go sender equals that serializer, and then bang, it'll just, and we have to name it here as well. And then it will add everything else for us. We don't have to do anything. And so it's a nice little trick. And I find it, I read about this in the documentation and I was like, I don't get it. But once I saw it, I was like, I get it. So this is, again, why we're doing it this way, blah, 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 blah. Okay, so now that's cool. So we want to look at the database now. Go here, refresh. We're going to have to add our connections to our admin section. So we go here to in our API, our admin, and we want to import our connection. And then we want to register the connection in the admin section as well. Save that. It's updated, and then we refresh. And now we've got our connections as well. Down here we should have one. Yep. Nola N to Nick C. Down here, and then it's just one user to another, and it's not yet accepted. So we're just confirming that everything worked. So what we want to do now is we want to fetch when we refresh. I'll refresh the app. And just wait for this one to hurry up. So this requests list is not being loaded yet. We need to load that. When we enter the app for the first time, we want to load this requests list from the database. So we need to send a signal as soon as we enter on open here. We want to tell the database to send us straight away the request list. It's going to be really easy. So we've already got the socket. So we're just going to go socket.send JSON .stringify, and then we can add whatever we want. and we're just going to say source. We're not going to pass any arguments at all. It's going to say source request dot list. We want to just fetch. We want to straight away, as soon as the socket opens on open, we want to send it a signal immediately. One of these. We want to tell it basically to give us the request list immediately before we do anything else. So that's good. Make sure that's saved. Come over here, and we're going to make one more, and we'll copy this request connect, and I'll keep them. That's not alphabetical. I'm going to take that. I'm going to rearrange these. This is going to be elif make friend requests. This is going to be if request.connect, and this is going to be get requests list request.list receive request list, and now it's RST alphabetical now. And make sure there's no errors here with this if L. And then now we're going to implement our request list function. So come down here, the second one. And it should be pretty simple. I'm going to grab our user, which is us, or the requesting user. So all of the requests that have not yet been accepted. Request serializer. All of our connections, and then we're gonna, because this is a list, we're gonna get many equals true. And that should be it. Save that. Don't see any errors. Save that. And no. Refresh this, and then our Android should receive a requests list. Our iOS did too. So you've got iOS request list, but of course there are no requests for that user, so there was nothing to see there. But our Android did receive a user. So our Android, this one, as soon as we open the request, socket open, we expected to see that. Android socket open, straight away receives this request list, and it's got one request here, which is exactly what we hoped to see. And this past source, we haven't made our response yet to handle it, but we will now. So we're going to go back to our use global, and we're going to make a new function here, request list, requests list, or whatever. Let's do the singular. Request list. And our data here is just the requests list, so we can call it that. And it's going to be one of these, really simple. Request list, request list. That's it. Now it's not displaying anything yet, but we'll get to that by going to our probably close our API now and go to our requests. We're going to build out our requests list now that we've got some data to actually show. Okay, so if there's no, actually we'll go, okay, first we'll go to our global and we'll just comment this out for a second. This response request list, we'll just comment that out. And then we'll come over here and we'll fetch our request list from our use global. Make sure it's imported. Now, if our request list is null, meaning it's loading, that's what that means, because it hasn't been set with a list that is either empty or contains something, then we're going to display an activity indicator. Activity indicator is something that's provided by React Native, and select it with the IntelliSense and then make sure it's imported here. And then you're going to give a style of flex 1 so that it reaches all the way to the top. Then when we save that and reload, save that. Why is that not changing? Request list is equal to null. Let's make sure that it is indeed equal to null. It's not request, it's requests. Yep, it's our request list, not requests. Save that. Yeah, there we go. And see, because it's null, we're just loading now. So this is what's happening until it gets some data back from the server. So that's working as we expect. That's good. Back to our requests. And so it's null, it's never being set because we commented it out. And we'll go back to our requests and then we'll uncomment this out. And then it should load for a second and then, well, less, is pretty much instantly. And now we have our requests back again. But this will be replaced with either an empty, one of our empties, or row items that we can, accept requests from. So empty, we've got empty there. Empty is imported. So that. And now this user, Nola, has no request. So this is what Nola will see straight away. Now we expect to see one request here that we have, which we are going to add now. Show the list. So it's going to be a view. And next one, just wrap our flat list in a view. Flat list. Make sure it's imported. Our data is just our request list. Our render item is something we're going to create. to create a new component called request row. And the message that we're gonna give it a message. So we're gonna import our we're going to make another common object that we already have. So in our search, when we start typing, see this cell item? We're basically gonna make a common item that's going to be our row cell item, and we're going to take that from our search. So search, we made one already. Search row, which is just this thing here. So we'll create a new component. We'll call it cell.jsx. And then we'll pass the child nodes that we want to display inside this component. A view, which will let, I don't like how it does this. Yeah. And the view is we're going to take that from, close this. From our search, we're going to export our cell, to cut that, save that, and then we're going to come back here and we're just going to go cell, and it should have imported that for us. So now our search row is inside this cell, and it did import it. It imported it for us. Now inside our requests, we're also going to go cell, and now we can keep going with that. So we're going to have our thumbnail, and we'll pass our URL, which is going to be our item.sender.thumbnail. Our size, that's just going to be the same as our search, which was 76. We'll take this as well. And then inside, actually we can just take a lot more than that. We can take these two texts, text and text, because we want them to basically look the same. And then it's going to be item.sender.name. We're going to have a message here. So we're going to create a message. Something like that. And if we have other things pop up in our request notifications, this area, then maybe we can have a different message, but we're not going to do that for now. And then we also want to add the time, or how long ago it was sent, something like that. Just to make it look nice and complete, we'll just give it 7 minutes ago for now. We'll add that later. And then the text. Soften the color. And make it a bit smaller. Save that. a problem. View does not exist. We import view. We don't need to save area view anymore. We can just utilize that. And there we go. Look at that. So now, let's refresh just again. And now, no requests for this user, which we expect, and there should be one right here. This user has requested to connect with us, which is exactly what we hoped. We want users. We want friends. You know what I mean? We want people to be able to request to connect with us, and this is exactly what we get here. And we also want to be able to accept their connection. So we need to add a button here. And we'll create a new button. New component up here. We're going to grab a function from our global, which is going to allow us to accept that request. Save that. Now we need to go to our global and make that function. So this request connect, we're also going to have one called request accept. And then you pass the username. And it's going to be almost identical, except we're going to pass this, the source, as request.accept. Now, well, this should reload. And then now we have a nice little button there, which is sending this. It's exactly what we want. This is being received by the server, but the server is not handling it yet or sending anything back, so we can hit this as, you know, to our heart's content. And there's something else we're going to do as well while we're here. Yeah, so yeah, hit it a couple times, it worked. Now we're gonna add the part where it's going to show up. So when we go here and we hit connect, it's going to update here. But we're sort of halfway we're halfway through it at the moment. So what we want to do is we want to remove this connection that we already made. Delete that. Delete. So go to our connections, make sure we've got 0 connections. And we'll refresh, and then this will disappear. And there, we should have exactly the same thing here. Nothing. So that's what we want. And we're going to go to our global, use global, and we're going to implement this part here, so that when we add a user, it's going to update here. Now that we've built out our list, which is what we need to do first. So now we're going to update this part. So we want to get our request list. And we need to do the same thing that we did before, where we deconstruct like this. We want to make sure that this user, we don't have a request from this user already in the list. So we're going to do very similar to the other one. We're going to search index. But this time we're hoping not to find it. So we want to make sure that it is not a valid index, which means it didn't find anything. And then, if that's the case, then we can add it to the front of the list. So to do that, of our request list, we want it to be at the top because it's the most recent. It just happens. So we unshift. That's how we can add to the front of the array our connection, and then we can set our request list, and then we save that, and now when we make a request, it should update here instantly, because we go to our consumers, when we receive a connect request, we send it back to the user who sent it, which updates their search list, which updates this, which we already saw, but when we refresh the list, this went away because there's one more thing we're going to do to make that work. So when we hit connect here, it should update here and say pending, and it should update a row in this list now. Boom! Ooh! Yeah, so it just updated it in real time straight away as soon as we hit. Let's do it again because it was so divine. So we'll go to our connections and we'll go here, we'll delete that connection, refresh everything. Just because it was so central to see, we want to see it again. We want to see it again. Did I not delete that? Oh yeah. Confirm delete. Reload again. Start searching. It's empty, and then yeah. Okay, so we're able to send a request to our user in real time instantly. Now we're almost done now. Oh, we've got to accept, but we'll get to that. So when I go out of this list, there's one annoying thing that we still got to do. When I start typing again, see how it's not saying pending anymore. But we don't want to be able to connect again. We want the status to be updated in here. And the way we've got to do that is in our serializer. It's not returning the correct. It's always saying that it's not connected, but even though we are connected now. So the way that we do that is something that we paused on earlier in our consumers. Here, we were going to annotate some data. So we'll re-add that now. So we're going to annotate a field called pending then. So we want to know, is there a connection where the sender is us, or this user? So is there a connection that we have already sent to this user, basically, is what we're trying to filter for with this one. So the receiver is something called the outer ref, and pass the ID of the outer ref, which is basically the item in the list, because this is returning a list. So basically whatever item we're considering, or whatever item the database is considering at that time, because it's going to do the figure out for multiple users for us. And then where accepted is equal to false. So do we have any pending connections, basically, that were sent by are there any pending connections that I sent to this user? That's basically what it's asking here. Now we're going to make a few more. We're going to create another one called pending me, and it's very similar. So similar, in fact, we're just going to copy this whole thing here. But instead, the sender is going to be the outer ref. Copy that. And then the receiver is going to be me. So are there any request that this user has sent to me. So, and I want to be able to accept the request right then and there in that list. And then the last one, are we connected? That basically is going to look for, again, I'm just going to copy this whole thing, exists a connection, object of filter, and we're going to use our queue, we'll get rid of all this, our queue object, which we should have queue up here. Yeah, it works. So we're going to do an OR. I'm going to say sender is equal to me, or the person who's asking, user, and the receiver is equal to the outer ref, or the object currently under consideration in this list, because it's going to look through to each one, outer ref, and we're going to have to import outer ref and exists. We're going to have to get to that in 1 second. ID. Okay, so is that true, or, and we're going to reverse them, or just swap this receiver and then this sender. Basically, is there a connection that I sent to them or a connection that they sent to me? Or vice versa, whatever. And then also, where accepted is equal to true. And then that's going to get any connection that we already have with this particular user that's already been accepted. Let's save that, and then, of course, there's a, yep, so this can't be on a different line, it's got to be immediately following. Yep, that looks okay for now. And so what that's going to do is that in this serializer, in this get status, I'm going to have access to these additional keys for each item. So, it's going to have for the user, it's going to have the username, it's going to have the first name, it's going to have, whether they're a staff member, all this stuff that the user gives us. But we're also going to have these 3 keys for every single user, which is going to allow us to access them right here. That means we're going to be able to add some stuff here that just says if the obj, which is the user, this user object with this annotated data, if pending them. And this is just, so the exists, this exists gives us it's basically a true or false. Does it exist or not? That's basically what we're asking it. If it's true, we're going to return pending them. And if not, we're going to check again. We're going to try again for pending me. And then if that's good, then we're going to return pending me. If not, if we're already connected, then it's going to return connected. And if all of those fail, then we're going to say there is no connection. So we save that, come back to our consumers, we're going to have to import exists and also outer ref. So we'll have to come up to the top and we'll go here, exists and outer ref. Save that. And now we'll refresh this whole thing. Now we've got this user here in the list. Now when we look in our search list, hopefully we'll see the correct status displayed. And we do. That's exactly what we hope to see. And all these others, they'll work as well once we accept and all this kind of stuff. The only thing left to do now is to accept the request from this user. That's all we need to do now. And to further show that it should work, I'll search for NOLA here and see, and so it says connect, but for the request that I've already been sent, it says accept here. So I can accept it here, or I can accept it here. So that's the last thing we've got to do. I hit accept there, and then request accept. So that's one more thing we've got to do, and then we will be connected to that user. We'll have a connection.